All right. Well, hello and welcome to the Philadelphia Sports Podcast, a weekly take on Philly sports through the lens of husbands, fathers, and Philly sports fans. And as always, folks, before we start tonight's episode, I want to ask that you please make sure that you hit the subscribe button and the notification button. Subscription button keeps you connected to our community, and the notification button will notify you anytime one of our episodes are airing, because we sure would love to have you join us. Now, if you're enjoying tonight's episode while you're watching, please hit the like button and help us conquer good old algorithm. And folks, right now, I'll be going ahead and dropping the link in the comments section. So if you want to join us, you can go ahead and join us. Just go to the comments. All we ask is that you are willing to cam up so that we can see who we're talking to. So, Malik, as I said, man, how are you doing tonight, my friend?
I'm good, man. Halloween Eve or All Hallows Eve, so can't complain about that.
Gotcha. So yeah, let's talk about All Hallows Eve. Is that
man.
what we are? Is that what you're dawning us with this evening?
Yeah, well, so I foolishly, or I'm not sure if I'm foolish or the people who let me coach their kids are foolish, but either way, somebody is definitely foolish for letting me coach. And we had a Halloween baseball practice tonight. So everybody came and dressed in costume and then tried to run around the bases, pitch, hit, the whole deal. So I participated, and I am a dodgeballer I'm Average Joe's from dodgeball. So there you go.
Nice. Very nice.
But I might keep this headband. My head is massive, and this whole ball thing, this helps mitigate some of that. So I might rock with that. I'm not sure.
I'm not going to hate, man. Maybe I just think, you look fairly presentable in anything you got, but the headband, I think it works for you, brother.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
So, speaking of things that work, let's talk about things that work and look presentable. How about your Philadelphia Eagles? As of late, it looks like something is working and looks presentable. Where do you want to start?
So I think I was thinking about the last couple of times we talked about the Eagles, and I was like, all right, so everybody was ready to run Sirianni out. I think we were kind of on the cusp of that. And then he had the whole moment, which is crazy to think that the turning point actually might have been him cussing at the fans. Like, if he doesn't cuss at the fans, we might not be 5-2, which is crazy. Because I thought we kind of both said, like, run the ball. This is their identity. And this is an inflection point. Him cussing at the fans. Be you. Be you. Team wants to see you be you. Now they got to go out and support. And they have. They have. And so it's wild to think that a dude who's got over a 600 winning percentage lifetime with the Eagles, his whole season with us or career with us was predicated on him cussing out a bunch of people who were probably right at the time in the stands. But here we are. Best game of the season. Jalen Hurts looks good. And the Eagles are probably a Super Bowl contender right now.
And here's the interesting part about him cussing out the fans is that fan commented on the interaction. And he appreciated it. He loved it. He loved the fact that the coach was engaging with him personally. He didn't take offense to it. He thought it was just like, like, to me, it sort of exemplified what a good coach-fan relationship looks like in Philadelphia. And so I think from the outside in, outside of Philadelphia, you're looking at it, you're like, wait a minute, how can you talk to your fans after a win? Like, how dare you? They support you. You're paying their money. You're like, you kidding me? These are hardworking citizens. Do you know how much they're sacrificing?
Yeah.
Well, according to that hardworking citizen, that was one of the best experiences he's ever had.
Yeah.
And so to me, like that creates that real relationship with your fandom when you guys see each other or you're able to understand the moment, even if the outside can't. And the fact that he sort of doubled down a bit in terms of like, well, look, I know what happened in that moment. And so I'll offer a response to the public, but I'm going to show you through my actions what I'm really about. And I think we both appreciate the fact that, look, you're on the hot seat, whether you like it or not. So if you might as well take your Frank Sinatra, do it your way, or you're going to go out and people are going to assume that your way wasn't your way, but only you have to account for that.
Yeah.
Right? Like you may not get another opportunity to show the NFL what your way was if when you had the chance to do it, you didn't. So I believe that the team has responded favorably to Nick being Nick. But we can't act like there also wasn't some fundamental changes in terms of the overall game planning of this team. It's more than just a swagger, right? Like that's not all we're talking about. So let's get into the brass tacks.
Two things can be true at the same time.
Yes, sir.
Two things can absolutely be true. Yeah, right. All mutually independent, right? So he was terrible. They were terrible. They've gotten better. And they're deserving of all of it, right? So we can say whatever we were saying at the time was accurate, right? They looked unprepared. They looked like they were in some kind of malaise, right? They did not seem to be a cohesive unit at all. Nobody was playing complimentary football. He was giving the most ridiculous answers at press conferences. They seemed disjointed in terms of who was responsible for what call and who was responsible for the overarching decisions. And that was all true. Jalen absolutely did not sound like he was rocking with that dude at all. He cusses somebody out. The bye week comes at the right time. And all of a sudden, it's like we're back in maybe 2022. All of a sudden. So I don't think what we were saying was wrong. I don't think what anyone was saying was wrong, right? But there has been growth and there has been progress. And it might have been the fact, like, look, we talked about it with Detroit. Dan Campbell doesn't call plays on offense. Dan Campbell doesn't call plays on defense. But they are probably the number one seed going into the playoffs. And he lays his imprint on the team. Sirianni's is just that of a type dude who cusses fans out and sounds real bad at a press conference. That might be, but Saquon rocks with the dude. Brandon Graham rocks with the dude. They love this guy. So show up, be you, and then let's see go play ball.
And go play ball.
Go play ball.
Listen, I think you hit the nail on the head. And it is not hard to tell that this team does appreciate the moxie, I think, that Nick Sirianni exemplifies. What I am pleased to see is the drastic drop-off of the pass attempts from Jalen. Yeah. So I was watching some program, and they had his first 4 games versus the last 3, right? They're 5-2. And in the first 4 games, in all of those games, he threw for 30 or more attempts. In the last 3, he threw for 25, 14, and 20.
Yep.
We are watching the 2022 version of Jalen Hurts again. He's not Burrow. He's not Mahomes. Like the notion that for Jalen to be maximized, you need to make him a pocket passer. I hope that they're done with that idea, right? Like just throw that out the window. The best version of Jalen Hurts is a power running offense around him. That's what makes him special.
It's so wild. It's
so easy to see.
You're spot on. But what's so wild is that we had talked about all the money that was spent, right, on AJ and Devontae, and clearly they want to throw the ball. And the first 4 or 5 games or whatever you just quoted, that is exactly what they were doing. But we never actually we talked about Saquon and how the Eagles kind of zagged a little bit when the market was going a different way and invested money when you don't typically do it. But they spend money on their line. They spent a lot of resources on their line. Landon Dickerson was a first-round pick. Jordan Mailata was a project, but he was a project that's been kept and then reinvested in.
Yep.
Right? Cam Jurgens was a high pick. Becton was a former first-round pick. Lane Johnson is a Hall of Famer, right? And then so they've gotten guys around Tyler Steen. They've gotten guys around those dudes, and they've made sure to invest in the continuity with Stoutland, who is always known as one of the best, if not the best offensive line coach ever. And that is as strong a group as they have, right? So whatever you think about the offense, right, the receivers, the running backs, and all that, quarterback, the line is off. So we always talk about kind of the weapons that they have. What we continue to see is around Saquon with this line, it makes the strongest weapon that they have, which completely enhances Devontae getting deep and going for 6 for 85. And then, Jalen being efficient, not having an interception in the last 3 games, I don't think either. Those are big deals. Those are real big deals. And the other piece is, and I don't think we cannot say this, and I was thinking about this the other day. is Devontae Smith. I think he had like -2 yards or something crazy 2 games ago, right? Mm-hmm. This past week, he goes off. He makes an incredible catch over his shoulder in the end zone, whatever it is. I thank God that we got a bunch of dudes on this team who are selfless. We got Saquon out here talking about, yo, I'm not trying to break the record, let the young bulls eat or whatever it is. A.J. Brown, his daughter, Jalen's godfather to his child. Devontae's out here getting 2 yards, and then he's going off here and like, I'm good. We got a bunch of dudes who you actually have the environment for complementary pieces. And finally, it seems like they've got the environment around them to support that group. So
you are correct. I think this team is uniquely in a position where you can throw the ball 20 times a game and everyone will be satisfied.
And they'll be fine.
I think that you have a formula where they can be so dynamic and so tricky to guard that they revel in the fact that they can also be decoys, when they know that they are moving players around defensively to open up spaces for the other guys to get a big gain.
To win.
To ultimately win, because here's the beautiful part about how the Eagles are assembled. Those guys are paid.
Yeah.
It's not they don't have to think about contracts anymore in terms of their production.
They got their
bags. Know the organization respects them, values them, and has put their money where their mouth is in terms of signing bonuses. We'll give it to you up front. You don't even have to earn it year after year. That's how much we believe in you. So we need you to believe in this game plan, which might not have your numbers statistically pairing with someone who's getting 15 targets a game. Yeah. However, we think we could be in the win column. And we also know that you're so dynamic as a player that they can't stop you in order to stop us from winning, right? Like, because when the rubber meets the road, our playmakers will still win on one-on-ones. Like, here's the other thing that I heard. In the game against the Bengals, we had 20% of our plays were under center, which went up significantly. I think 6% of our plays over the first 6 games are under center. Mm-hmm. Jalen needs to become more comfortable under center, right? Because the reads are, in my opinion, the way they design his reads are easier. They're saying because he came out of Oklahoma, he was used to being in shotgun and having everything in front. Obviously, when you're under center, there's a portion of it where you're potentially turning your back to the defense. Mm-hmm. However, in those instances, you design it in a way where his reads are very simple when he turns his head. It's like, and I think there's where there's a whole new dynamic in terms of how you have to defend the Eagles, because you have a Saquon who is better out of the under center. So that's why you're adding those play calls to the game plan. So he can now see everything in front of him. Jalen is learning what to diagnose from this position. The play action pass is now unlocked.
That's where I was going to go, because we've not seen that the amount that I think if they start utilizing it more, then all of a sudden, I mean, you're talking about Saquon Barkley, who was probably a coin flip between he and Derrick Henry for Offensive Player of the Year, right? So now all of a sudden, you got dudes who on the outside can win. You got Goddard when he comes back healthy, although Calcaterra has actually played really well, right? And then all of a sudden, you're going to throw Saquon where you're going to fake handoff. You got a line. Keep in mind, the throws that he was executing down the field, right? He had a deep end to A.J. Brown. He obviously had over the top to Devontae, right? If you go back and look at it, he was holding the ball 3-4 seconds. He was, even the throw to Calcaterra where he slides and gets out to the pocket and on his left throws it, that throw took time to develop, right? So we're not talking about quick hitters. Yeah, he's got those. I mean, we've seen those slants, we've seen those quick kind of routes to the flat, but I'm talking about balls where it takes time to develop the play. If all of a sudden you've got guys who are sucked up and then chasing, all of a sudden the Eagles have a chance to unlock a whole other level that I'm not even sure that we've seen. So we keep going back to 2022, but we're more talented than we were in 2022. We're more talented. Just the addition of Saquon Barkley makes you more talented than you were in 2022.
So we are in agreement there. And I think the piece that I'm most interested in is whether or not they're going to be held accountable to what we've seen over the last at least 2 weeks. to me, you can't divert back to the brand of football that had Jalen dropping back 30 times a game. I don't want to see that anymore.
Well, you know what, Sam? Sirianni, look, for all of the things that he talks about, he was asked very plainly, like, he said they're a running team. He said they're a power running team, right? So I know that he's not calling the plays, but right, we're believing that as CEO, he's going to kind of put the imprint. If we're a running team, then I believe that dictates our course, right?
I'm glad that they said it out loud because it's obvious to the eye. And again, even Jalen with the design runs in terms of the draws, it's perfect. He's perfectly suited for it. And it's just a numbers game. Yeah. Again, our receivers make you back up. Like we're playing chess. It's real simple. We just have a counter for how you have to defend us, but it's all predicated of you having to address our running game.
Yeah.
If you don't commit to stopping the run first, then it's like a domino. As soon as you commit to stopping the run, then we can hit you over the top. Right? Then you suck our linebackers in the intermediary game, and then the one-on-one situations, we always have those. We always have those at our disposal.
So we're talking Eagles football, but right now the World Series is on, and we were watching the Eagles game on whatever Sunday, and I'm talking to my wife, and I'm like, "Yo, Saquon is a closer, right?" So that last drive, I want to say, before it got completely out of hand, the Eagles scored on like an 8-minute drive. It might have been like 7 minutes and some change. He has the ability, first of all, because of the tush push / brotherly shove or whatever you want to call it, you're always going to operate on like a 1st and 8, 1st and 9. Like, you know, that's in your pocket the majority of the time. And all the cats who are like, yo, I don't know why we still do this, blah, 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 my fantasy team, this, Saquon Barkley, that, whatever. You got to play in the NFL where nothing works 90% of the time. That works 90% of the time. Why change it, right? So you know you already got that in the bag. You got 2 yards in the bag. The other piece is that with that line and the fact that you've got Jalen as dynamic as he is, and he's looked healthy, and then Saquon as dynamic as he is, and he's reinvigorated, and you've got 2 dudes on the outside who can go win, you have a dude you can hand the ball up. You got options. And so, like, I dare you to try to come stop me 1st, 2nd, and 3rd down and prevent me from getting 8 yards because you know I'm getting 2 on the back. Like, that's what it's going to be. So I like the idea that the Eagles start to wear cats down. Like, the physicality, we can talk about the defense in a second because I think we need to talk about that. Absolutely. But the physicality with the line, Becton is a big dude. You know, Mailata is a big dude, right? Fred Johnson's a big cat. Dickerson's a big dude. Like, these guys wear you down. And then you got a 200-some running back who is definitely not trying to go out of bounds. Like, these are some physical dudes, man. He's a closer. So if it's close and the Eagles are ahead, 8-minute offense, let's go, Saquon. Run the ball, run the ball, run the ball.
And that's how we looked in 2022. Even without Saquon, we had those 8-minute offenses. Like, you couldn't get us off the field. That was the thing about the Eagles. We would shorten the game because we would just control the ball. Yeah. And to me, this is how you do it. And when I look up and realize he only threw the ball 20 times total and 10 of 14, I mean, against the Browns, 14 pass attempts in a win, I'll take it. I mean, yeah, you would like to see a little bit more, but still, you know, we actually moved the ball. And in the other game, you scored 37 points in 3 quarters. I believe this next game, we will score points in the 1st quarter.
So you know the biggest difference, though, Sam, is because I want to make sure we still make the point that multiple things can be true at the same time, right? Okay. The Eagles are 5-2. We have not felt great. This is probably the first real week where we were like, yo, it's swung, right? It really has swung. They were winning games last year. We didn't feel great. We're in a situation now where we're 5-2. We feel dramatically different, right? Because all of a sudden you start to kind of see the vision. You kind of start to see, like, we're realizing what we can do, what we can be. And like, oh, maybe Jalen is in sync with Kellen Moore. Maybe all of a sudden the defense is actually starting to understand what Fangio is doing. We got some young bulls over there who are ready to go out and eat. Like, all of a sudden we're starting to get a sense of that where you can win the game, but the way you win, as we learned last year when you dropped the last 5 of 6 or whatever it was, all of a sudden, like, that matters. Eagles have a formula, and they're creating an identity, and it all is because we cussed out some fans in the front row a couple of weeks ago.
And, you know, again, I'm glad that the Eagles as an organization support Sirianni as well, right? Because I think that could have also been an issue where, let's say Sirianni doubles down in terms of like who he is And then you start getting a scuttlebutt that the organization wanted him to, maybe operate in a way that was fashioned differently. Like that could have been part of the issue.
Yeah.
Seemingly it isn't, right? Seemingly this is observation of something, not understanding context, and then people just having an opinion on it. When you get it from the sources from both sources, they were both good with it, but the coach realized, hey, optically, not a good look.
Not a good look.
Not a good look. So, but even to know that from as a Philadelphia and a Philadelphia fan, knowing that it wasn't like he wasn't really needling a fan, right? Like knowing that wasn't really what was going back and forth, but actually two people, willing participants, and just gamesmanship. Like, hey, good win. I'm eating crow, but it's the coach of the NFL team. Like he's talking to me, like, and they won, and it's the outcome we all wanted anyway. So it's like, man, I don't want this guy getting fired over this. Like that was the best day of my life. You know what I mean? So
right.
So because his head was on the shopping block after that incident.
But you know what? Like in fairness, right? Because I do think that the criticism was warranted. I understand your point, but like a lot of the stuff that he says on a press conference, he wouldn't get a job at like Costco, dog. Like when he gets up there in front of the media, he's long-winded. He's saying things that seemingly contradict. Like you're like, where did this even come from? But clearly, what he's saying to those guys has resonated, right? And for me, the turn was coming out of the bye. Jalen sounded different.
Right.
Before the bye, if you go back and look at whatever was said and clips from his press conferences, we talk. We get on the same page sometimes or whatever it was. He was very indifferent. He was kind of like middle of the road in his enthusiasm for him. All of a sudden, it's like, no, we're on the same page. We're leaders. We're talking. We're working together. Like the tone was very different. So I don't know what kind of retreat they went to. I don't know what kind of drink they had or whatever it is. But like they clearly had a understanding coming out of that bye. And when I looked at the season, I was like, yo, that's mad early for a bye. Thank God the bye happened when it did, because if it was in 4 weeks, we may not have been in a situation. But that bye seemed to align this team. The bye seemed to be at the right spot where he came out in the same conversation. And you got the clips of Saquon eating up the Giants, and all of a sudden he's like, nah, I'm going to let the young boys eat. Like, these cats buy in. And something must have happened. Something galvanized this group. It could have been the bye. It could have been cussing people out, whatever it was. But him being himself has all of a sudden seemed to adjust and align the way the team is going to be able to proceed going forward.
Listen, I am just pleased to know that Jalen likes the offense, likes what Kellen is doing. And even though he's still getting the ball is still in his hands, they're adding a lot more rushes to his portfolio, because he is not a pure pocket passer in terms of why he's dynamic. If you limit him to just being a pocket passer, you're missing out on the dynamics that is Jalen Hurts.
No, you're right.
The fact that we had him throwing almost 40 times in one game was just like, what are we doing? This is ridiculous.
Can we talk about something else that's been dynamic too? Sure. And that we're going to go over to the defensive side of the ball for a quick second.
Okay.
So a couple of weeks ago, I was fairly critical of Darius Slay, telling you that the boy was out here trying to work on his podcast game. He's out here trying to steal checks, and I haven't changed my mind. What I will say is that Kenyon Mitchell, Cooper DeJean, and even Isaiah Rodgers, the insertion of those dudes, the fact that all of a sudden Nakobe Dean, like Devin White was a Super Bowl winning linebacker. He was a top 10 pick. Let him go. Jalen Carter is starting to pick up and be consistent. Bryce Huff is off of a milk carton. Like these young dudes all of a sudden are starting.
Milk carton?
I think Bryce Huff is off. If you watch Bryce Huff lately, listen, I'm not saying he's Reggie White. I'm not even saying he's Javon Curse.
I think Nolan Smith is off the carton.
Nolan Smith is definitely off the milk carton, but Bryce Huff got the bag, so that's why I went to him first, right? And so he looks like all of a sudden he's starting to figure out how to play in this particular system and what is expected of him in rushing situations. I'm not saying he's great on against the run.
Okay, I got you.
But
maybe I haven't seen those flashes yet. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interfere with
all good. But my point is that these dudes are playing with a presence. Like these guys are faster, much faster than the last group, right? notably Bradbury, notably Avonte Maddox, notably Slay. I know Slay's still there, obviously, and Slay's still good for minutes, and I keep getting on him. I have a hard time reconciling with the boy after the whole Michael Parsons podcast thing. But all of a sudden, these dudes look like, yo, we got some young boys. We got some cats right out there hunting.
Confidence goes a long way, man. Like, because I think about even watching Colorado Buffalo play, right? Deion's team. And I'm watching a team that looks confident on Saturdays.
Yeah.
And it goes a long way when you feel when a team has that swag and that feeling like I know what the play is going to be, and I'm physically able and capable of making this play. And that's what we're seeing. When you see Cooper DeJean first of all, he's in man-to-man coverage on Chase, right? And Chase does he is in motion, goes back, and then like comes back, like he was trying to lose him behind the line of scrimmage and just get caught up on the defensive trash.
Yeah,
Cooper DeJean, he had to come around his defender as after the ball is released. So he has his defender and an offensive player moving down the field. He had to go around them. He didn't cut in front. He went around them to still get to Chase.
There was a play that he made, and I know we're both basketball. You're definitely a basketball guy. There was a play that he made where he got his hand. I think it was in the first half. He got his hands on a ball. He almost intercepted the pass. They showed the replay of that, right? And the first thing I could think of was John Chaney, which is crazy, right? The reason why is because John Chaney notably was all about that matchup zone, right? So Fangio brings his zone defense. That's where he plays two over the top. Whatever his guys play flat, and they have responsibilities in the middle. DeJean, he made a play in his spot, right? So you're in basketball, if you're playing a zone, you are playing the space, but you are never playing an empty space, right? You kind of shade towards where the man is, right? So you find the guy, and then you're still responsible for a space. If someone's in your space, you match up there. If they drift out, you pass them to the next guy. You are not guarding an empty space. That's how it works, right? There was a play that he made where he's playing, I think he was on the right corner or inside the right flat, or right side, excuse me. He does not have anybody immediately in front of him. So if you go back and look at that near interception, he drops back. He reads that there's no one in the flat that he's responsible for, and there's no one out wide that he can go sink to. So he drops back. He checks behind him and actually looks at a guy trying to peel in. The reason he got his hands on that ball is because he's like, look, I understand Fangio's defense at this point. I'm able to say, like, look, there's not anybody in my zone that is a threat to me. So I'm going to go in and I'm going to assume the space behind me, take away that lane. He drops right back into there and his both hands on the ball. He should have picked it. That's progress. And that's a dude who didn't play during the offseason or preseason, excuse me, and a guy who only came back a few weeks into the season. Like, the Eagles might have hit on some dudes, man. They might have hit on some dudes. And he definitely
Quinyon Mitchell, his statistics for the year are outstanding in terms of number of targets, catches that receivers have on him in total yards. Like, I feel like the most yards he's given up in the game is like 30 yards. It's something ridiculous. It's ridiculous. Like, quarterbacks aren't even going his way because they don't feel comfortable throwing his way. So I believe they have hit on it. And I love what's going on with the Georgia Bulldogs. Nolan Smith, to me, he's the one who's flashing the most, in my opinion, out of the two. I want to see more of Huff. And maybe there are times I'm getting them confused, but I know I've seen number 3 working his tail off to get around. The way they are stifling the running game, I love the fact that they aren't just selling out to get to the quarterback, that they don't care about the run. I mean, this team is playing complete football right now. And I'm looking forward to them to playing better talent. You know, I think this week we're playing the Jacksonville Jaguars. I mean, it's the NFL, so any given Sunday. Right. I think from the Eagles' perspective, you don't care who you play. You just have to keep putting together good performances. You have to keep building on and establishing what your identity is. So, again, I want to see a 60% run game moving forward. I want to see defensively where we're able to play that tight coverage on the outside and go after the quarterback. You know, like
that's what I really enjoyed, because I was concerned that Fangio was going to sit back and he's going to rely on his front four to go out there and generate pressure. We've actually seen him bring additional guys to kind of create the rush. So I don't know if it was, hey, I'm not getting home with Nolan Smith yet. I'm not getting home with Josh Sweat. I'm not getting home with Nakobe Dean, blah, 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 blah. So I'm going to start sending additional guys. but Carter is getting busy, right? We're seeing Huff start to do some stuff. We're seeing Nolan Smith start to do some stuff. So now all of a sudden it's like I've got options where I can drop 8 or 7, or I can go ahead and send in the linebacker or DeJean. I'm telling you, I love this dude, man. I love this cat. So I love the fact that, and the other thing is this, Sam, this is the other thing, is that we talk so much about the quarterback being on a rookie contract and the money that you can save out of that, right? Avonte Maddox is probably going to be gone. We haven't seen the dude. I'm not sure we're going to see him again. Darius Slay's probably, he's probably already looking at, properties outside of Philadelphia, right? So Bradbury's on his last legs. So all of these dudes are cats we're paying, which means all of a sudden, Kenyon Mitchell's going to be on a rookie contract. DeJean is going to be on a rookie contract. Dean is still on a rookie contract. Smith is on a rookie contract. All of these young boys are still really underpaid, which means if there's a free agent we want to go get, if there's a trade piece we want to go get next week, you know what I'm saying? There might be some flexibility there because salary-wise, it's going to fit in what their current structure is. So that's an option because of the way that this defense is progressing. You're no longer relying on heavily salaried long-term contracts because those guys are moving on. So now it's like we got some flexibility for this run based on the progress this group has shown.
I didn't even that. And you're absolutely right. You got young players making dividends now.
Yeah,
that are under control for a few more years.
That's what I'm saying. And you hear that argument as it relates to quarterbacks so much. But Slay is probably on his way out the door. That's not a criticism, it's just his contract status and his age. You look at Bradbury. Bradbury's still getting paid. We haven't seen him. He's going to be gone. Maddox is going to be gone. So we're talking about at least $30-some million right there that we know will be moved forward at some point. What do you do with that money? The Eagles, to their credit, spend. And if they see this team with this window right now, where in the NFC, the Niners are struggling with health and other issues, the Cowboys or whatever the Cowboys are, Commanders look like they might be something, but maybe it's too soon for them. It's really the Lions, and then who? You see what I'm saying? So at that point in time, Howie might be sitting there, and the next time you and I get together and talk about this online, it might be a conversation like, yo, the Eagles traded for X player on the defensive side because they've got some flexibility in their.
So let's do it. Because I believe the trade deadline is next week.
Next Tuesday. It's election day. God bless it. The country isn't. The world doesn't fall apart.
If there was a target, where do you think we make an improvement to bolster this roster?
I think traditionally the Eagles are looking at defensive players. I think that's where your space is. I think they could use
like a edge rusher.
I think. Well, I would find it hard to invest a significant unless you are getting a top tier dude, right? A top tier dude, because the Lions are probably gonna look for somebody also, right? Because they lost Aiden Hutchinson, defensive end. He was a stud. He was an absolute stud. They're probably gonna look for somebody too. So the market's gonna be inflated because they see their window is now. They've lost one of their better defensive players, and they're probably going to try to go out there and support that group. The Eagles will have to also do something. So unless they're going to be willing to spend, I could see it being on the defensive line. Personally, I wouldn't be upset if they also got some veteran offensive line help. I know it's not sexy, but you've had Mailata out, you've had Becton out, Steen was injured in the preseason. So you don't want to continue to test your depth there. And you don't want to have a drop off, particularly with the way the line is operating right now. So I would look at the two lines personally. Last year the Eagles went out and got Robert Quinn for Chicago, didn't do anything for a 3rd round pick. They also got the bull Shaq Leonard from the Colts, didn't do anything. So we've seen them make trade acquisitions in the past. Obviously years ago we're talking about running backs that they picked up or whatever. Jay Ajayi. I would think it's probably going to be in the defensive side, if anything. And depending on the price, I think you're looking at a defensive lineman. And I would probably say edge. I could see a tackle, but I think you're trying to make sure that you rotate in for Brandon Graham because even though he's played at a high level, you don't know if you're going to get that through 17 games this season.
What position was Shaq Leonard?
Shaq Leonard was linebacker.
So we also picked up a safety last year.
Byard. Yeah.
Right. Like I feel like all of the at the time, it's like Howie's wheeling and dealing, but they really all failed to really give the kind of
all defensive players, though, right? All defensive players.
Yeah. But I do remember like those guys didn't show up on tape the way we thought they would. Like,
now that could have been. So Leonard, I don't think is in the league anymore. Quinn, I'm not sure where he's at, and Byard is actually back with Chicago and playing well, as I understand it.
Got it.
So I think that's where they would look. It's going to be really hard to have an impactful guy on the offense at this point because of the depth that we have there. I like Gainwell and Shipley. I think they like Shipley. Shipley had a touchdown called back, if not for a penalty last week. But other than that, I think we're looking probably somewhat up front on the defensive side.
Yeah, I would do the same thing. I think you can never go wrong with adding more to your offensive line because your offense goes, your offensive line goes.
Yeah.
And you can have a treacherous game and all of a sudden you have a very different situation. So to me, anytime you can add depth there, I think you do it. And if I were going to add an impact player on defense, I think someone to apply pressure on the edge, but that's a risky proposition when it comes to the trade deadline, right? Because to your point, we've tried that in the past. And unless you're making a long-term commitment for a real stud, then it's going to be hit or miss. It's like, is he really right for this scheme? What's the reason? Why is he available now? You know, all those questions.
Right.
You know, so I'm with you, man. And maybe in light of, you know, I like Rodgers as well. Maybe they look at something in the secondary too, just to kind of continue, you know, making sure that they have guys ready and willing and able and available. But I do like, you know, what we have right now on the defensive side in terms of our young players. And I like the fact they're getting reps. They look more comfortable. They look confident. I'm a big fan now of Nakobe Dean. He seems undersized when I'm watching him, but he makes plays and guys stop short, man.
I'm going to go back to what you just said about the secondary because I was thinking about this a little bit ago. The Eagles secondary last year, your top two guys were Bradbury and Slay. Then you had Maddox. Then you were bringing in dudes, Josh Jobe, right? Which was, you know, he's not going to the Hall of Fame. Let's leave it there. Eli Ricks, not going to the Hall of Fame, right there. You had Kelee Ringo, who was a really young player. So you had a bunch of dudes who were either off injured or also rants. And then you had Slay. In one season, they've now gone out and got Kenyon Mitchell. They've got DeJean. You had Isaiah Rodgers, who was budding before he was suspended last year. And you still have Slay, who's playing at a high level most of the time. So your top four dudes are solid. You like Kelee Ringo, right? You like Kelee Ringo. He's played well. You went out last year. Also, you got Byard. You replaced him with CJ GJ, right? So you got a bunch of dudes, and
you brought in Sidney Brown,
and you got Sidney Brown, right? So and then he was playing well before he got injured last year. Now he's back. So you got all these guys. You just look at the talent, look at the names. Like it's a better cast.
Yeah,
it's a better cast.
It's a good group, man.
Huh?
It's a good group.
It's a good group.
It's a good group, and the way and they're gelling together. So now you actually can see them in a way. It's like, okay, this is who you are.
Yeah.
Again, it's all about continuity. And I think that's what we lamented about watching the Eagles for the last 6 games or 7 games of last year and the first 4 or 5 of this year. It's like, where's the continuity?
You know what else is well, Sam? Is that, and I'm sorry, I'm excited about this group, is that the idea that you got 11 guys in the field, you insert DeJean, and all of a sudden, like the weakness that was at the nickel corner, because Maddox was off injured, and when he was healthy, he was a good cover man, but he was never physical. He's not making tackles like DeJean. DeJean is throwing dudes down, right? He's a big bull throwing cats down, right? Kenyon Mitchell, you leave him out there on the eye like he's not backing down from Jamar Chase. Neighbors was mad about it 2 weeks ago. Like, yo, you saw the tape. I was over it. No, you weren't, dog. You weren't, right? Like, these cats are out here. They're sticky and they're physical, and they can run, which is a dramatic shift from, again, Maddox, Bradbury, Slay, Ricks, Joe.
Downplay the way he followed Jamar Chase while he's in motion, but then had to run around 2 players that are advancing downfield. He had to run around them. Think about this, man. Yeah. He's running around them to make contact with the guy who's still behind the line of scrimmage.
It's a bad white dude, man.
The way, like, if you watch his closing speed, even if you slow the tape down, the way he is covering ground, he diagnosed it, he saw it, he trusts his eyes, man. And that's the beautiful part about it. It's like you realize there are instinctual players who are getting it right. And that's how you become all-timers. You're instinctual, but you're getting it right through your preparation. You trust your eyes and you just move. And as a rookie, he is not second guessing what he's seeing.
Nah, he's got intuition. The play I referred to earlier, where he dropped back into coverage and he was occupying his zone, but he was also reading around him. And then the tackle right there, it was a complete play.
So it's complimentary football for the first time. Like this Bengals game was just so refreshing. Again, first quarter aside, but even the defense stood on its head, and the defense has been playing well, all things considered. Think about it. You're playing defense on a team that's yet to score in the first quarter. Think of what kind of position that kind of puts you in, even in terms of how the teams approach you and attack you for the rest of the game if your team doesn't score for the whole quarter.
But the Eagles, what was crazy is that they just kept landing body blow. And then all of a sudden you look up and it's like, yo, it's a 3-score game. Like, how did we get here? So, I don't know. But you use the word refreshing. I'm going to tell you what's not refreshing at all. I know. Go ahead. Just change it right now.
No. Let's do it.
Because I got to tell you, man, basketball is dead to me right now. I'm not even going to hold you. Basketball is straight dead to me. Right. That's it. Like, they have killed it. They have put it in the ground. They have buried it. And then they haven't told anybody about it, apparently. So, they just killed me. It's hurting me so much. So we are now, 2 weeks into the season? And I feel like we haven't even started yet. It's terrible. It is absolutely terrible. I know you and I talked about this offline, but like every time I look up, it's like just more car crashes. And the Sixers just operate and we talked about this the first year in which there's not been any drama. These dudes cannot get out of the way of themselves.
So here's the conversation.
They can't get out of the way, Sam. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
If these dudes can't get out of the way of themselves, and we already talked about the major surgeries that they had where they stripped this thing down to the studs.
Right.
Is it the dudes or the organization?
It's the organization right now. It's the organization.
Because it's not the same dudes. These dudes weren't here before and they were ready to have a fresh start, the same refreshing start that we were looking forward to. They came in saying, we know all about Philadelphia, but hey, we're willing to look at this thing with fresh eyes. And then all of a sudden, the season starts, but the Sixers didn't know the season was starting, it seems.
So let's lay the landscape real quick. Let's lay the landscape. So you and I are on the same page. If we're talking to nobody else but each other, let's lay the landscape. So Embiid gets injured sometime middle of last season, right? He is out. He comes back towards the end of last season. He gets maybe like a week or two in, right? And then he's clearly labored and hobbling. He's in the postseason. He's on one leg. Has a couple moments, but he's not himself. He has about a month and a half, maybe 2 off. And the next thing you know, he's on a boat in France, and then he's winning a gold medal. In that tournament, now correct me where I'm wrong. In that tournament, he does not look great, but he has a few great moments. That ended in July, I want to say, somewhere in there. And
it ended in August.
Okay, so I'm not sure when they ended, but the Olympics or the tournament, the basketball tournament or the Olympics, I'm not sure when that ended. You saying August?
The Olympics ended in August.
The Olympics ended in August. Okay, so it ends in August at some point in time. And then August, September, October, the season just started a couple weeks ago. We were not told anything about any injury or further concern, right? We see that he's dropped weight. We know that, you know what? We saw what he was last season. We see him play. We assume, right or wrong, that because we've not heard anything further, that he's going to be back when the season starts and ready to go. Then all of a sudden, information starts leaking out. I'm not doing back-to-backs. Okay, cool. Cool, thanks. We didn't ask you that, but cool, thanks. Right? And then all of a sudden, season opener, and he's going to be reevaluated as part of his ramp-up process. Wait, ramp up from what? What are we ramping up from, dog? Then concurrent with all of that, the NBA is now investigating, right? That was last week. Then today, they get fined. There's another investigation, right, where they actually determined that they did not violate the whole health report injury thing, but they do get fined because of misrepresentation and statements that they made about his status. The Nick Nurse, whose only job really to the media is to talk to the media and tell them what's going on with the team, doesn't want to answer any kind of questions about
Top down, baby.
Am I missing anything? I'm probably missing something in all of that.
What you're missing. So obviously, when we talked offline, I defended a professional team's ability to keep certain things close to the vest.
Sure.
With that said, the way this has played out, I can't ultimately absolve the Sixers in terms of their communication and PR strategy.
It's trash.
There's the back-to-backs I understood and I accepted. And if they got in trouble for that, I still understood it. It's like, you know what? Let's just get in front of it. Let's figure this out. But again, when we talked offline, my issue was also the ticketing and pricing, right?
Yeah.
Because you have color-coded games associated with the marquee matchups and you're paying for it. But if you already know
the Warriors,
that for the Warriors game, Embiid is not there, and you know it because it's the second game of a back-to-back, then it shouldn't have that same, dollar amount ascribed to it, right? Like, so to me, there's some adjustment that should be considered if you know this now. The ramping up in terms of availability, that's where I was a little bit on the fence around, okay, why not be more upfront around what's going on? Like, why is that part the secret? And basically where we are today, I am concerned about what's really going on with his knee at this point. It almost seems as if the Sixers didn't want to have a negative reaction for re-signing him in this offseason for the 3 for $193.
We haven't even talked about that. Continue, please. Go ahead.
So it's like we can't come out and say, hey, he has something degenerative here, and we're still going to sign him for the 3 $193.
Can I ask a question about, can we pause right there for a second, Sam? Was Joel Embiid a free agent going into this offseason?
No.
He had, I want to say, a year, at least maybe 2 left on his existing contract.
Probably.
Okay. So we knew what we last saw. The public knew where we last saw him at the Olympics. Not in great shape. Not in great physical shape. Do we believe that the Sixers probably had more information than you and I did?
Yes.
Okay. And with whatever information, they still said, you know what, Joel Embiid, we're going to give you this 3 for $190 some bag. Okay. They saw his physical condition. They gave him that money when there was really no reason to. And I'm not saying I want Joel Embiid gone. What I am saying is, why did we do that? And then you don't want to, you feel confident enough to give him that extension, but you don't feel confident enough to tell us what his condition is, right? If his condition is so bad that we can't even know what it is, but the NBA is investigating and finding you for it, right? If it's that bad, then you shouldn't have given him that extension right now, right? If it's not so bad where you're looking at it like, look, we know what it is, then just tell it. We know what it is, so therefore we are confident in giving him his money because long-term health is going to be fine. His prognosis is going to be fine. He's going to recover. He's going to be okay. We'll give him the extension and we'll tell you what it is. I can accept, look, he tore meniscus or whatever it is, sprained MCL or whatever it is. We're going to go ahead. We're going to hold him out in October. We're going to reevaluate at the beginning of November. We'll see where he's at then. Long-term health is fine. I can accept that. But this whole like incognito, furtive, discreet thing, dog, I can't rock with this, especially when you gave him this money and we don't know why you gave him the money and then we don't know why you're not telling us anything.
See, the money piece makes sense to me because he's only going to become more expensive. That's the reality of it. Like, unless you're saying you're going to part ways with Joel Embiid, and even if you are going to part ways with Joel Embiid, it makes sense to already lock in what his value will be. So if you move him, you're moving that value and not a diminished value because now the jig is up in terms of his injury. And so now you're going to get pennies on the dollar in terms of what his actual production can be because there's a tag associated with his potential health. In my opinion, health aside, his number is his number at this point. And I think any team, to me, there's no one less team that wouldn't make a run at an opportunity to acquire Joel Embiid because he's locked up at a number. All the numbers are going to go up. So to me, the Sixers,
that's really fascinating.
The Sixers are in front of a situation, but I think that there will always be a suitor. To me, this doesn't negatively impact the Sixers. in my opinion. I don't believe so.
That's fair.
I think not extending him could have negatively impacted the Sixers if he does have a true degenerative issue.
That's fascinating because the way I'm hearing that, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that if we had waited to sign him, the number goes up because that's the way the market is. And if we're going to sign him, it's going to be at a higher number than we got it right now. Get it? We keep his value. The caveat here is, would we have re-signed? Like, I don't know what his contract status was prior to the extension. Let's say it was 2 years. At the end of 2 full seasons, whatever he might be, health issues included, were we likely to re-sign him?
Do you mean in terms of him walking?
Or trading him?
Right, that's my point. So
right, you let him walk. Because I'm looking like, we live in a world now where Klay Thompson is going to go in the Hall of Fame as a Warrior. He's a first ballot Hall of Fame Warrior, right? They let him walk.
Yeah, but he didn't have the value. He didn't command the value.
No, I know, but
okay, here's the comp. The comp is Paul George. That's your comp, right? Like the whole thing, they blew up that team for Paul George and they let him walk. So there's your comp in terms of this conversation. I don't say a Klay per se.
The reason I go Klay Thompson is because I think Klay Thompson's injury history, I think, is similar to, you got the ACL. Now, his injuries were more significant, obviously, than Embiid's, but he had enough, and they've been more recent than Paul George's injuries. Paul George's injuries were.
But Embiid was the MVP 2 seasons ago, and last year, prior to the knee injury, he was going to have an even better year. At the end of the day, when he's on the court, he's still Embiid. Klay Thompson is different. Like, he's a different player.
I agree with you. I'm forecasting 2 years out, though. I completely agree with what you're saying. I love Embiid. I think Embiid's a beast, right? Embiid plays. He's a top 10 player in the NBA. There's no questions asked in my mind. Period. However, what I'm saying is, if in 2 years, because what was the impetus behind doing it now is my question.
Hey, if in 2 years you want to move him, then the team gets 3 years of him. So you get much more in return because you got him under contract for 3 more seasons.
But that's so I hear you. Let me throw another layer out there. Because the only team that's going to sign Embiid are teams that are going to be like right there at the cusp of winning and believe that with Embiid, when healthy, can do it. Nobody, like the Hornets aren't signing Embiid, right? The Hornets are signing Embiid. No, they're not going to sign Embiid. They wouldn't do it.
With LaMelo Ball? Are you kidding me?
No, listen. It would be absolute capital offense if those dudes. Listen, yeah, they could. Could they sign him? Yeah, sure. But why would a team who is not likely on the precipice?
And Brandon, what's their small forward?
Why?
In 2 years from now, you trying to tell me that Hornets team would not? You look at Embiid like, yo, this is what we need.
Keep in mind what I'm saying. Embiid with this condition in 2 years, what's his health going to look like?
But we don't know what the condition is.
That's what I'm saying. So if that was my whole point. Either they should say it because, like, hey, look, we signed him to all this money and his condition isn't so bad. So here's what it is. We're going to tell you what it is. Right? But it doesn't make sense to me to sign him and then still be afraid to actually say what's going on.
Maybe they're concerned about saying what's going on based off of I don't know the rationale. I can't even speculate. All I'm saying is that to me, the signing of Joel Embiid is not problematic to me. It's only problematic if he doesn't play. If there's something to the point where he can't play basketball, then it's like, what in the world did we just do?
What did we do? Why did we do it?
Right. So if it's more like, hey, we always thought we were going to slow roll him in, and we should have been a little bit more upfront about it. Like we just played this poorly. Like he was coming off the Olympics. It was a lot of basketball. We always intended that he's going to have a slow ramp up because of the summer where he didn't get a chance to dial it back the way. Because here's the thing, it was a lot of basketball. You're talking about a guy who had surgery, came back to play in April. So like he's been playing a lot of ball. So like to me, this is a resting period ramp up, but I think they couldn't be as upfront about saying this is what we always just intended to do with him. Maybe the NBA would not have gone for that. And now they're just trying to figure out to say what they can say. So until they know what to say, they're just not going to say anything.
Well, so they were fined because statements made misrepresented his condition.
Right. So now if you don't make a statement representing his condition, you can't get fined for misrepresentation.
What they've said is this is part of our ramp-up process. What they've said is this was always going to be the plan for him. We have a plan. We were going to ramp him back up. But they never. So if the NBA is fining you for something because you misrepresented the statement that this was part of our plan, we're just ramping him up, then that can't be true.
It could be true. It could be true depending on when it was communicated.
Well, look, I don't know.
If the NBA knew it this summer that, hey, this is how we're going to manage Joel Embiid, maybe that's different. Maybe the issue for the NBA is, hey, the season's about to start. And now
so you don't think the NBA found out more information than we did? That's where I'm wondering. I'm wondering if the NBA.
I think the NBA is upset with how they're learning this information. I think the Sixers. It feels to me that the Sixers weren't sure exactly how to present it, and so they just didn't until they had to say something because the season started.
Well,
someone will say the big fella's not on the court. Why?
That's my initial point, because you got all these dudes who are making far more money than you and I, right? And you got Daryl Morey and Elton Brand and Josh Harris and all these cats who you can't figure out how to make that comment.
You know what? I am talking about this out loud. Shame on me. You can't hide Joel Embiid.
No,
what are we talking about? All of a sudden, just to be like, wait, what am I talking about? You can't hide not having Joel Embiid on the court. So you should have hired someone to figure out what to say if it wasn't in the room already.
That's what I'm saying.
You have to have an answer if we're not going to put him on the floor for opening night.
The whole thing is predicated on Joel Embiid. If Joel Embiid does not play, whatever they did with Paul George and all the other cats they signed does not matter.
So I think it's just simply allowing him to rest. That's what I think this is. It has to be, right?
You hope. You can't
go after Paul George and really have a serious issue. Could you go after Paul George and also have a serious knee issue? Is that what we did?
So much hope in your voice right now. You want it to be true so badly. You do. You sound like a kid that just came
down. The alternative is devastating.
I know. That's what I'm saying to you. You just sound like you came downstairs there's got to be a bike under the tree. There's got to be a bike under. There's got to be a knee under Embiid, right? There's got to be a left knee under Embiid, right? That's what you sound like right now. There's got to be a knee under Embiid. That's what you sound like right now. You're hoping, and your hope is based on a franchise that has been obscure, that has lied to you, and has now been out and out obstinate because the coach doesn't want to answer questions, and the GM or vice president, whatever the bull is missing in action. You have so much hope, and it's predicated on a series of car crashes, dude. Listen, I got to add two. I will get it. But right now, the only thing that's fitting for them is a bunch of clowns, except for Maxey, who's out there going balling it real crazy.
Yeah, this is gonna be. It's just amazing that the Sixers can't get a clean start to a season.
I jinxed it. It's my fault.
We really had a podcast about the fact that they have a clean start before they started. Shame on us. Shame on us for saying the coast is clear. Everybody back in the water.
Who was the rap? Who was the rap? My mind is whatever, because I'm listening to songs that can't cuss no more because of my kids. Who was the rapper? It was all good just a week ago. That literally was it. It was all good just a week ago. That's it. That should be the Sixers. It was all good just a week ago.
He told everybody the coast is clear.
It was
fine. Come on out. It's all right.
It was.
Guards could go away. And then on cue, Sixers released a statement. Everybody's just like, huh?
Yes.
Huh? Then all of a sudden, NBA, it's we're here again. Knock, knock. Oh, it's like a footnote. NBA investigating that time of year again, folks. The NBA investigating your 76ers again.
It's exhausting with these dudes, man. Every year.
They have an office. They set up their own area for their annual Sixers investigations, yo.
Yeah. They have a space in the building. They got a workstation.
They got a workstation.
We're gonna just hold this right. We'll leave our notes here. We'll be back. They got a station. Well, we know we still have our key. That's it.
Gosh,
that's it, man.
It's funny at this point, man. Now
we
get blown out by Detroit.
Listen, shout out to Tobias Harris and Paul Reed on the revenge game. But
thankfully, I didn't watch it because I had a meeting this evening. I just look at the box scores. I'm just like, we get blown by Detroit at home.
I saw Paul Reed say before the game that he's looking forward to getting revenge or getting his dub on the Sixers. Like, ain't nobody checking for Paul Reed. Detroit's not even checking for Paul Reed. Like, miss me, man, please. Like, good dude or whatever it was. He was a fun.
Like, for paying you?
Listen, out the mud. You're upset. Like, you're upset. Really?
They drafted and paid you, bro.
Come on, man. Like, please, let's stop playing.
They drafted and paid you, man.
Listen, this is the same dude who they at one point in time tried to tell us, he's going to be CI.
Wait, they didn't pay him.
No, he got a contract with the Sixers, but it was not guaranteed. They let him go because
not guaranteed.
Right, right. It didn't invest. But he is a second round pick who has had several years in the league. Like, he's not hungry, or he shouldn't be hungry. So, like, let's not act like, I don't know, you were out here on Skid Row. Detroit might be Skid Row, but like, you're fine. You're fine.
Man, we'll see at the end of the season which team's on Skid Row, because now you actually have had, now I'm concerned, brother.
Listen, I'm gonna tell you, like let's not go too far, but I'm gonna ask you, if the plan is a healthy Embiid in the postseason, do you have any confidence that with this plan that we are more likely to experience success in the postseason? Because your answer is going to be, it entirely depends on Embiid.
It's always.
That's it. That's your answer.
And then the question is, if he's not playing regularly, is he going to be able to maintain and sustain through the rigors of the playoffs where the demand is different? And you either are prepared physically for that demand or you're not. It's a war of attrition. It always is.
We saw those Knicks games. And you can't tell me that those games weren't like, it almost feels like they should count for back-to-backs.
And that's all they're going to do.
Right? Like each game felt like a straight-out fight. Like, it didn't feel like a regular game in October or November. It felt like, we're going out here and we're trying to draw blood. Like, that's how those games were played. And a guy who has been off injury, I'm not going to call him necessarily, he might be injury prone. I'm not going to call him soft because I think he's played through all kinds of things, right? But is he going to be able to survive that? Right? Is saving 2 more weeks in October? If it does, then let's do it. We can't guarantee it, though.
Right.
We can't guarantee an orbital bone's not going to get broken in May. So I don't have any more confidence in that. None. This does not do anything for me unless it's going to significantly affect in a positive way the long-term health. That's it. Otherwise, keep them out.
Like I said, I understand the idea that coming off of the Olympics and the playoff run, that they always wanted to give him additional time. Like, I can get that fundamentally. If they blundered in terms of the communication, then shame on the Sixers. You guys get investigated every year, so you should have huddled up to figure out exactly what you can say and when, if this is your plan. Or if the reality is you would have been fine because this is your plan, then so be it, right? Like, that also could be the case where it's like there was no situation where we could, on our own accord, ramp up Joel Embiid, if you know what I mean. But and what makes it weird though is that he didn't violate like the policy in terms of reporting injury. So there is something like they can't like that's why this is so strange and weird, because I want to accept one idea around what's going on. The problem is it doesn't add up to the information that has been documented and accepted by the NBA. So obviously there is a reason he was held out and the NBA accepted it under the provisions of an injury. So I can't just simply say it's rest. I can't tell myself that is what they're doing if the NBA is saying, no, they didn't violate this under this provision for injury. They reported it properly. So I'm like, reported what?
Exactly. Exactly. And by the way, and you said this earlier, I'm going to reiterate the point because I think it needs to be said. I'm out of town. When I come home, and it's not often, I try to make it a point to go to a Sixers game. When the Sixers come anywhere near me, whether it be New Orleans, whether it be Houston, whatever, I try to make it a point to go to a game there, right? And all of these places have dynamic pricing. And so what they are telling me without any information, and what they're telling me based on their lack of information and their behavior, is that these games don't matter. These games don't matter. The regular season doesn't matter. So, like, why am I going to go out here and spend, on average, $200 to $300 just on tickets?
At least the front half.
At least the front half doesn't matter. Right.
You know? Yeah.
At least
the Sixers have told their ticket holders the first month of the season, hey, we're not all in.
I wouldn't take it back until Christmas. Right. If I wouldn't take it back until Christmas. Because why would you believe at this point in time that, tomorrow is the last day of October, right? Why would we believe that he is going to have a whatever regular schedule is for him in November? It's going to take him time. Like, even when he gets back, it's going to take him time to get back to the rigors of playing basketball. And that might mean if he's got 3 games in a week, might mean 2 games. If he's got back-to-backs, well, we know he's not doing that. Right? It might mean, we're going to miss the West Coast trip to rehab. You don't know what it's going to mean. So you're right. The first half of the season doesn't even matter. The regular season for the Sixers, it's like, look, you can already forget being a top 2, 3, probably. So listen, check back in April. That's what they're telling us. Check back in April. And I will, because I'm a glutton for punishment. But I'm not going to buy any tickets right now. So, on that happy note.
No, I'm sorry. I was thinking about something that happened earlier today, but not associated with this at all. But I just kind of lost myself in that thought. I need to write it down. Have a nice sort of response to it. My fault.
Okay.
This is real. This is how it works, folks. This is how the sausage is made. This is how you stay on top of your game.
There you go.
Because all right, this is what I do want to say though, and sort of as we wrap up, even what I did just now, so just turned 44 a couple of weeks ago, and one of the things that I'm in this phase of my life, I'm trying to hone in more on instinct. When I have gut feelings, to not then choose to put it through the same kind of filter logically that generally has me making a decision other than what the gut feeling was. It's almost like I reason myself out of whatever that instinct is. And what I find is that over time, I'm always curious, well, what if I did make that decision?
Okay.
Those are the ones that stand out the most in terms of the what if sort of decisions. And so now the question is simply, what if I allowed myself to truly follow the path where I feel like I'm being led and prodded in moments and not fight against it, for safety more than likely, right? To feel safe and controlled. What if I just allowed myself to follow the inklings that life, the tea leaves that life was putting out there in ways and just seeing what happens and just having the confidence that, hey, this is the journey. It's not just simply what I thought was going to happen, but it's also what happens and reacting and responding to that as well. So I'm excited about it because certain things have happened recently that to me are evidence of previous ideas and thoughts. And it's like, there are moments where it's like, whoa, is this really playing out this way?
Yeah.
Instead of second guessing it, let's see it. Let's seize it and see if this is truly what I thought of all the way back here. You can't see my hands. It's like I thought about it at this point in time. I'm experiencing it 4 or 5 years later, but it's like, am I going to now pussyfoot around it and say, well, maybe I'm not sure, or say, hey, this was that idea from here. This is it. Seize it. How right does it have to be for you to know that this is it? And I think that's the point of life where I'm at right now in terms of the realization that there's another way of living life that includes following the clues a little bit
your initial
more intently.
Instincts.
Yeah, it's like they're there for a reason. And a lot of times I find that they're tied to a previous thought or idea. And it's like, this is the other version or the other end of that thought. And for me to continue in that path, I gotta, see it like, I can't bypass this. I gotta bing, 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 hit the button here and then move to the next station, if you will. Like by hitting this button, I will progress to that next station, as opposed to saying, is this really the button I really want to hit? 5 years ago, you knew if you just had an opportunity to see it, you would hit it.
Yeah.
So why are you hesitant now?
Yeah.
Life might be different, but your overall goals and plans and in terms of like for yourself. So that's the thing where I'm realizing like, man, there have been things that have along the way, and there are moments where I do pursue it wholeheartedly. It's like I see it and I know it and I understand it. But then there are also times when I know I second guess and stop, not because I don't want it, but because of maybe I'm not comfortable with the cost in that moment. But at the same time, if I want certain things, then the cost is part of it, right? You can't wrestle with that then. It's like you can't have faith for something, and then in the moment, now your unbelief comes in.
Yeah.
It's like, no, you know that there's a cost for this, but this is what you are pursuing. Don't shy away in this moment, So yeah, just
is there some, if I may, is there something specific that you are thinking about in that way, or that you are actively pursuing, or that you recently kind of stepped into where instinct rather than kind of like the bureaucracy or the more pragmatic?
Yeah, well, I mean, there's something professionally, so I can't share that, but it is tied into the relationships that I've developed, right? Like I've had visions of certain partnerships in my life that I said, hey, this person is doing well in this avenue, and I think that there's an intersection here. And it's like, man, it'd be nice if there was something that we could do together.
Yeah.
5 years later, something presents itself. You're just like, wait a minute, is this that?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like we've matured. We're still on the same course independently, and here's a real opportunity. And I think the part that makes me excited is the fact that when it was presented to me by the other side, it's like they almost felt the same way. Like their engagement with me had the same kind of feeling that I thought that I would have led if I met up with them.
Yeah.
So it's like, wow, do we really share this thing about, hey, there's something here that we're supposed to be exploring?
Yeah.
And so that's why I'm like, I think the answer is yes. Because why would it be in my spirit then?
Right.
And for you to feel the way you feel about it, and we've never talked about it, and so I'm thinking to myself, like, this is just confirmation. So don't, here's one of those experiences where don't act like you don't know. It's almost like with my wife. When I met my wife, I kissed her like as a kind of confirmation that what I'm feeling about her is really what it is. And she kissed me back. But I could have second guessed that thought and not taken that risk to kiss her. And felt maybe the cost would have been embarrassment. That's too high of a cost. Or she would have smacked me and I would have had to leave. Or a lot of things could have gone wrong as a cost. But I wasn't afraid of that cost because I felt assured that this is what I'm supposed to do.
What's fascinating about that is that I know that we probably are a little bit long, but I think you make an incredible point. The idea in the Bible, there's a story of Gideon where he was asked to do something and he was questioning his role, and he was questioning whether or not it was God who was talking to him and commanding him the way he did it. So he said out of Matt, wet. Yes. Okay, great. I believe you. All right. Well, hold on. I really still got questions, even though you did this thing for me. Now make the area around and make the mat dry. And we can be called into space and still have questions. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And I think that we can be looking for confirmation. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that, because I think part of our condition, of our human condition, is a sense of frailty. There might be some insecurities there, but it doesn't mean that that it has to prevent us from going into what we're called to do. So I think the idea that you're talking about, like whatever it was 5 years ago that you may be realizing or experiencing now, you may not have been the person at that time 5 years ago to experience that, right? So now who you are in this stage of life that you're existing in, I'm sure you've experienced growth. I'm sure you've had a different vision. I'm sure you've had experiences that have prepared you to say yes now that you may not have been ready to receive it then. And those things that you're hearing now may just be the confirmation from the question, say, hey, is it really time? Am I really ready? I'm not really sure. Now you're getting your confirmations. You're getting your confirmation. Then you're ready to say yes. I think that's a cool place to be.
Yeah. Yeah. And I just want to keep that eye open, and continue to be sensitive and also look for it. So I find that when you look for it, you see more. as opposed to just assuming, oh, wow, that was interesting. Just realize, wait, I need to be more cognizant of the fact that these cues and clues are all around. These feelings of like connective ideas over time happen and those experiences occur. Like, take account of it, understand it, realize like those are directions, see it as that, see it as a map, as a guide. And don't just simply reject it because you're afraid when you're asking for something generally that you haven't done before anyway.
Yeah.
A lot of times the things that we want in our lives aren't things that we already experienced. So if it's not something we already experienced, then it's going to be something new. So we can't be afraid of it at the same time. Mm-hmm. Even if we thought it might look one way. The reality is that if you want to be in a different space and place, then know that those are going to come with new experiences. Like both, so just and maybe at my seasoned age of 44, and feeling fairly good physically, realizing, hey, I get a whole nother stab at this thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's kind of how I feel. I feel like I've lived a life, and now I'm about to live. I won't call it like a middle age. I don't think it's not crisis, but it's like I get a chance to not live again, but go at it in a way with a different mindset and just different level of understanding and of myself and the world around me, and just to apply it.
So you're saying, to put a bow on this, that your first 44 years were your ramp-up process. and now you were ready to begin your season.
I'm about to begin the season.
You're about to begin your season.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
First 44 years was just a ramp up. Now you're beginning your season.
Now I got the young ones looking at me, so it's like, okay, it's time to show and prove, and I'll show them what I got.
Don't do no back-to-back, Sam. I'm excited. I'm looking forward to hearing whatever that yields.
Well, listen, man, this was rich. This was rich, man. So, as always, folks, thank you for joining us for another episode of the Philly Sports Podcast. Again, please feel free to like and subscribe and hit the notification button so you're alerted to every time that we go live, because we'd love to have you join us. Again, every Wednesday night, 10 o'clock Eastern time. Was it 9 o'clock Central?
Yes, sir.
9 o'clock Central. We will be here, folks. And if there are topics that you want us to talk about, just drop it in the chat and we would love to discuss it. So with that, you got anything else for us, Malik?
Hey, man, you guys have a safe and happy Halloween to all those celebrate. If you've got any nerd clusters or Kit Kats, I will definitely send you my address and you can drop them this away. So
we'll make sure we get them down to you, my friend.
I appreciate it.
Till next time, folks. Peace.
Take care.